Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us on a Friday afternoon. My name is Oliver, and I'll be your host from UK University Search. Today, we are lucky enough to be joined by four universities. Well, I'll be joined by the University of Westminster, City University of London, the University of Kent, as well as Solent University. Today's session is all on clearing and results day. So now, as I'm sure you're all aware, we've got just under 2 weeks' time. I think it's the 15th of August when results come out, and we're going to be getting all sorts of information on what actually happens on the day and what you need to do. So with this session, what's going to happen is it is actually being recorded. So if you do have any family members, if you do have any friends who possibly couldn't attend for some reason today, this session will be recorded and it will be available on our website, studentstream.co.uk, and that'll be ready at some point next week. But don't worry, for everybody that has registered with us, we will be sending across a link and some more information to you when that is ready. So how this session is going to work a little bit is we've got a few topic areas that all of our universities are going to be talking about. They've got about 15 minutes or so to give us these information. And then we've got another round of Q&A questions, which are the most questions that get asked usually around this time. However, on top of that, we have got a Q&A function at the bottom. So if you do have any specific questions at all, whether it's to a certain institution, a certain university that are here with us today, or it is just more generically about clearing or what happens on results day, please do fire away. When our panelists aren't actually talking, they'll be able to answer all of them questions for you. However, do hold off a little bit when you come to them, because we will be getting through most topics, and I'm sure these questions will be answered throughout the webinar. So enough from me talking. What we're going to actually do is we're going to pass over firstly to Ross from City University of London, who's going to be giving us a little bit of information about preparing for a clearing interview. So Ross, if you want to try and attempt to share your screen for us, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Hello. Can you see my screen all right?
That's perfect. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
it's all showing. Let me just click one slide just so you can see that there's a move.
Yeah, that's all
That's
perfect.
working. Perfect. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along to this webinar. It's really exciting to hear from four different institutions about different aspects of clearing, and probably something you'll start to recognise as more speakers go along actually is the process is quite similar across all institutions. So hopefully that puts your mind at rest. So as was introduced, my name is Ross Pickering. And I work for City St George's University of London. I just want to very briefly talk about the name because we have just literally changed name yesterday. So City has now merged with St George's University, which is another institution in London. So we are now called City St George's University of London as of yesterday. And my session is going to be called Preparing for a Clearing Interview. But just to explain what City St George's is very briefly, because some of you might be a bit confused by what that means. So City is an existing university, as is St George. With the change, there will be now campus names, which there did not used to be. So we now have three campuses, but they're existing campuses, they're not new. But the main campus where I work is Northampton Square, which is now going to be called Clerkenwell Campus. The Bays Business School, which has always existed, is going to be called the Moorgate Campus, and the St George's University Hospital site, they are based in Tooting, and that will officially now be the Tooting campus name. We will still have 6 academic schools with over 100 courses, and our central mission at City is preparing students for business practice and the professions, which lends itself nicely to the topic I've been asked to present, which is about interview practice and what interviews are like at clearing. So in terms of what interviews are and what courses may have them and whether you would have to do one or not. First of all, let me set the caveat that most university courses do not involve an applicant undertaking interview. I think there's sometimes a common misconception that like all courses have them. I know the course that I did, you didn't have to do an interview as part of the application process, and the same kind of really applies at clearing. So courses that interview in the main cycle, and those that usually do are things like allied health courses, so things like nursing, midwifery, speech and language therapy, anything to do with allied health, and often that involves working or having placements in the NHS, will interview. And will apply during clearing. But in terms of what the interview will look like during clearing, that might be different at clearing because of the time frame. Because usually in the main cycle, because there's a longer time period, universities may invite you in, usually nowadays in person. During the pandemic, they were virtual, but some of them might still be virtual. But during the clearing process, obviously it's a much shorter time frame. And I'm sure when Fred starts his presentation shortly, he'll explain like when clearing opens and things like that. But because clearing is a shorter time frame, obviously not all of them will be in-person interviews because there isn't the time. Some of them might be, depending on the institution, but do expect that the process might be slightly different. So, for example, it might be like a video call on a platform like this, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or it could be a telephone call. So it might vary from one institution to the next. But it isn't just allied health, often teaching-related programs as well. We don't have any of those at City, but at other universities, I've worked for a couple. Things like primary teacher education, secondary teaching, education studies, they will also interview, and they will also require you to have sometimes more specific entry requirements as well, where you might, if you've maybe swapped course during clearing, and you've swapped onto one of these programs, they may have additional requirements. So, for example, for teaching, you will always have to have an up-to-date DBS check, which you'll need to do quite quickly if you haven't done it by the time you start the course. Because you're working with young people and children, you can't not go on those programs without having a DBS. And then for other programs like paramedic science, you might need a clean full driving license, which we recognise as universities after the pandemic is harder to get than it used to be, because there is still a backlog on driving lessons which still have not been cleared. So in terms of how do sort of universities approach clearing, the classic method that a lot of people recognise is called the call centre. But not all universities operate a call centre. And City is a good example of this because we've not had a call centre for quite a number of years. Even before the pandemic, we don't operate a call centre at all. However, some students may have a callback with an academic, which is a traditional telephone call. But in the main, we use an online web form. So in terms of interviews and sort of reaching out to universities, some universities and many still do use the call centre as a method, but that's not the only method. So just be aware of that depending on the institutions that you're targeting. In terms of who you may speak to, especially if you're going through an interview process, it is not always a member of staff, although in the main it will be, depending on your scenario. Each scenario is slightly different depending on the course that you're targeting in clearing. So it may be a member of staff, such as the ones you've got on this call. In terms of who all we are, I know most of the people on this call because I see them regularly out and about. We are all outreach or recruitment schools liaison staff. So we are involved in clearing alongside helping the admissions team. But in terms of staff, it could be wider people who work in marketing and communications. It could be people who work in student services. Generally, anybody who works in the professional side of universities who's not an academic. But in some cases, like I mentioned at City, if you're doing like a health program at City and you're applying through clearing, you will then be referred to an academic once you've completed the online web form, because they then need to do some form of interview with you. But that, as I mentioned, might not be the traditional come in person interview because there won't be the time. Be a telephone call, or it might be a call on a platform like this, Zoom or Teams. And also in terms of how you might approach those interviews, the types of questions and how they might be structured, you may be asked traditional questions like you would in an interview in person. So classic questions like, why are you applying for this course? Or tell me about your skills and experiences, particularly things like health, because it's very much about practice and how you'll be prepared for placements in industry. So in terms of preparedness then, I prepared sort of 4 top tips here that I think are most important for you in terms of preparing for a clearing interview, if you have one. Because as I mentioned, most courses actually won't have them, particularly at the clearing stage, but some of them like health, teaching, sometimes engineering or law, but less so, may have them. So first of all, and this is sort of advice for any course, even if you've got an interview or not, make sure that you have researched the course. And I can't stress this enough, because while a course at university might have a certain name, in school or college, if, for example, you're doing geography A-level, that is pretty much going to be similar to some degree, whether you're in England, Wales, Scotland, because everybody follows, all schools and colleges follow a national curriculum, regardless of the school type that you attend. Whereas at university, basically universities have the autonomy to structure their courses depending on the interests of their research interests and also what the academic interests are. So even though the course might have the same title, that course can literally be entirely different. So depending on what your interests are, I would have a little research to see what the courses are actually like and how they're structured, and also have a look at obviously the requirements. And overall, you want to see, like you would in the main cycle, is it the course you actually want to study? Especially if you're going for an interview, you will find the interview difficult if you're not necessarily aware of what the course may entail. So do that research beforehand. And obviously at the clearing stage, it's not like the main cycle where you initially have 5 choices, you narrow it down to 2, etc. You are literally targeting institutions on an individual basis. So you can be as specific as you want in the interview. So I would very much encourage you to talk about specific modules. If you're looking at doing maybe a research topic, a dissertation in your course, have a look at that. If you know what you want to do, that's great. Talk to the academic about that. And also, if you're doing a course like the health and education courses, where placements are intrinsic within those, because about half the time you spend on clinical placement or in a teaching establishment, have a look at the locations, know where you're going to be studying as well. That can really help. Similarly, on that point, research the additional opportunities. So, for example, if your course has the option, which many do, for a year in industry, so that's where you go and work for an employer for up to a year and you're usually paid. Or if your course involves or has the opportunity for you to do a study abroad, have a look at some of those, because that will give you more talking points when it comes to the interview. And for some of you, you want to embark on a course at university because it links to a career and you have goals in terms of where you want to get to with your career. So this is especially pertinent if the program is very career focused. So I've given an example on screen. There's something like adult nursing. The whole point of an adult nursing degree is to train you to become an adult nurse. If you want to be a lawyer, there is absolutely no point in doing an adult nursing course. You should have done that when you do the research on the program. So that's where, if you've got careers in mind and you're doing the course to facilitate you to get to a career destination, please do talk about that. We would encourage you to do so. Now, something else that I think is really useful for you when it comes to if you're doing a clearing interview, that a lot of people maybe not think to consult, is your personal statement. Because, of course, you have written that as part of your application process. And that's very useful to refer back to you. So especially if your interview is virtual, but even if it's in person, I would bring it with you if you still have a copy, print it off, because you can then refer back to that, because obviously that was what you used to explain your motivations and your skills and experiences that link to why you want to do the course. We would always recommend at universities that you use a method when linking back to your personal statement. So we recommend, or I've worked for 3 universities, and funny enough, every university I've worked for has recommended this method, which is called the ABC method, which is on the next slide. So that stands for A for activity, B for benefit, and C for cause. The activity is something that you've learned, whether that's on your A-levels, B-Techs, T-level programs, or something you've done outside of the curriculum that has been useful for motivating you to want to do what you want to do. Then say what you've gained from that, why it's relevant to the course that you're applying to, and why you're at the clearing interview, and then always relate it back to the course, particularly with extracurricular activities. Often students fall down, even the most academic students, because they don't relate back their experiences to the here and now. Why are you now, or in clearing, literally seeking a program that may start in a month's time? So always make sure everything you write in A and B links back to C. So in summary, because I don't want to run over time, my sort of 6 top tips, or City St George's 6 top tips for clearing interviews. Prepare, prepare, prepare. You cannot be over prepared, is what I would say. Research the courses and university before starting the phone call, if that university you're applying to uses a phone call system, or filling out a web form if they use a digital function. This will also help ease your confidence, so that when you may get asked questions, whether that's on the telephone call or whether it's in an interview or whether it's on video link, depending on the method the universities use, you've got the confidence to answer those questions, and use prompts like your personal statement to help you with that. You can use that with you, can take that in. I would look at resources to help you with your research if you aren't doing so already. Not least, obviously, you've applied through university in the main cycle. If you've done that, some people can apply, spoken about by other institutions, through clearing as a first-time applicant. But if you've applied through the main cycle, you've already got an account, I would imagine, with UCAS Hub. So therefore, use that as a resource. The Hub has expanded over the years. It doesn't just sort of cover your nitty-gritty of your 5 choices. There is so much useful content and information, not least things like when are university open days, which on that point, actually, some universities will have open events around the clearing stage. We have one on the 3rd Saturday this month. So look at resources to help you. If you're a school, or you're from a school or college that uses Unifrog, A lot of schools do. Not every school uses Unifrog, but if you've got access to that platform, it is fantastic. You can also access bits of that platform even if you don't have an account. But Unifrog is really helpful at providing resources, not least with personal statement builders. So if you're looking at your personal statement again and your school has used that builder throughout the year, that can really help you draw on those experiences for your interview. A really, really soft point, but it's so crucial. Clearing is a bit of a crazy time, particularly on results day if you're going in to collect on that Thursday in your school or college. Please keep your phone on you throughout the day. Use a power bank to keep it charged, because some universities, and many will actually, request to call you back sometimes at later points in the day. That's particularly pertinent for those health and education courses, because obviously if they're doing a callback, they can't necessarily complete everything in the initial call, especially if they're doing some kind of follow-up interview. So keep your phone on hand. A quick point on questions. If you don't understand a question, I know it sounds like really obvious, but it's so true for the many clearings I've done, that students panic and sometimes they forget the obvious. So ask questions, ask people to repeat themselves. There's no such thing as a bad thing, or there's no such thing as a silly question either. Please ask away as much as you can. This is for much as you as it is for us in getting you prepared for university. And overall with clearing, and in sort of university results day in general, really, it is better to be over-prepared, done the research, know what to expect, than sort of not done any preparation, just come back from holiday and not know what to do or say on that day, because it's a very fast-moving timeline, particularly on that day, on the results day itself. So make sure that you're sort of prepared for that. And some of the tips that I will provide, and I'm sure you're going to hear from other speakers shortly, will help you with that. So rest assured you will be fine. And there's some more information here if you want some advice and support as well. I don't know if Oliver wants me to do the follow-up question now or we're doing it at the end, but I've got my follow-up question there on screen if we're going to do that now. But that is everything from me. So I'm now going to hand back to Oliver if he wants to do the question, or hand over to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Ross. What we'll do is we'll come back to the question after the first round of presentations, and I'll ask you that one after. But thank you again for that. Just thinking and looking back at how the session's running, it'd be great again, Fred, if you are available. I think it's important to actually go through that introduction to clearing, just so we do have a little bit more information, find out a little bit more about what is clearing, who it's for, and how you do it actually apply.
Thank you very much. So sorry about that, everybody who's locked in. So again, my name is Fred Bonful from the University of Westminster, and I work as the Senior Student Recruitment and Outreach Officer. I'm going to be talking to you a bit about introduction to clearing. So do indulge me for the next few moments as I'll go through that with you. And so in terms of the overview, if we go to the next slide, just what I'm going to be talking about. So I understand that everyone knows that it's currently clearing. You've probably heard from your schools and teachers what clearing is. You've obviously, spoken to your friends about it, might have done your own research. And so in terms of what to remember for clearing, we're going to talk about how to apply as well. We're going to talk a bit about also who can apply for clearing, as there are different circumstances, different situations, and also we're going to talk a bit about top tips. So without further ado, let us go to the next slide. Let's talk about what is clearing. And so if you go to the next slide for me, Lolly, please. Okay. And so clearing is essentially an alternative route to securing a place at university. And so what that simply means is that we had the UCAS deadline, which was the 31st of January, and students had up until the 30th of June to apply to university. And so those who have not applied to university yet, clearing is essentially a second chance for you to apply to universities to secure a place. And so it's a time as well where universities will be filling vacancies that's available for courses. And so it's a time where you'll be doing research to find out what courses are going to be available. You can use the UCAS tool search, where it will be updated regularly as well to let you know what courses are actually have vacancies during clearing. And so essentially it's a time where you get the opportunity to apply. It's very important to bear in mind that students who applied for the 31st of January up until the 30th of June is done on a first come, first served basis. And so all those students would have been given offers by universities. And so there are still vacancies available on some courses. Obviously, there are some courses which are going to be more competitive than others, such as midwifery, teaching type of courses. But there are loads of courses out there, over 30,000 that you can have a look at. And also, clearing is open now. It opened from the 5th of July, and it's going to be up until the 21st of October. And so, students who have actually got their grades now, you can apply through clearing. But I appreciate the majority of you will be getting your results on the results day on the 15th of August. And from 8 a.m. onwards, that's where you'll be calling the universities to see if they've got any vacancies available. And it's also important to remember that clearing is open for as long as universities have vacancies available. And so you still got plenty of time to do your research, have a look to see what universities that you want to apply to, a list of courses, compare the courses as well, and make sure that, the modules, you check the modules, maybe consider joint honors. And so that's the time for you to really think about what vacancies would be available and calling the universities. If we go to the next point for me. Okay, so again, like I've already explained, clearing is open from the 5th of July. So it's open now until the 21st. And it's a time where universities take course. So essentially, that is what clearing is. If we go to the next point for me. And so it's important to also remember that if you are applying through clearing, it doesn't mean you are second best, right? It doesn't mean you're any less than those who met the deadlines for the 31st up until the 30th of June. And so it is a great opportunity for you to still secure a place at university for this academic year, September 2024-25. So that covers what is clearing in a nutshell. Let's go to who can apply for clearing. Actually, before we go to that, this is an interesting data that I got from UCAS to show you how many students came through clearing for last academic year. And so just to think about it in terms of how many students came through, you can answer it in your head, but how many UK 18-year-olds found a place at university using clearing in 2023-24? If we go to the next point, we're going to just show the results. Right, so 6,000 to 8,000 students came through clearing last year. So you can see that it's a very popular time where students apply through clearing. And so again, it is the highest amount of students that have applied through clearing. So the whole point of this is just to emphasize that it is a time that many students apply through clearing. And so it's not something to be concerned about. Is applying through clearing, is it a bad thing? It's actually not a bad thing. You get the opportunity to apply through clearing. Okay, so let's go to the next point. If we go to the next slide, which would be talking about who is clearing for. Okay, so who is clearing for? So again, like I've mentioned, if you applied after the 30th of June, you go straight into clearing. And so it's important to understand that also, if you don't meet the conditions of your offers, I appreciate that you've obviously got 5 choices. You've got your firm choice and you've got your insurance choices. But it's important to also note that, on results day, you might not meet those requirements from your different universities, which is absolutely fine. And so it is a time, if you haven't met those conditions, then you can apply through clearing. Also, if you didn't receive any offers from universities or any offers that you would like to accept from the universities, because what sometimes would happen is universities, your firm choice, for example, might offer you an alternative course. And so you might not get your actual course that you wanted to do, which is absolutely fine. But again, it's for you to think about whether this is something the course is actually worth accepting as your firm choice. And so again, it's a time where if you think that the offers you've received during from your universities is not what you want to do, then it's absolutely fine. Then you can go through clearing as well. Also, if you've got better grades, I appreciate that you might have predicted grades, but you might actually overachieve and you might decide, hang on a minute, I actually want to go to a different university that I thought I wouldn't be able to get into. So again, if you've overachieved, then it's a time for you to have a think about that as well. But it's important that make sure that you do not, press the decline my offer or my place and my firm choice. When you go into the UCAS hub, it's very important because remember that if you decline your offer, you go straight into clearing. And so before you decline any offers that you have a think about it. Have a look at the course, call the university, have a conversation with them. They'll be very helpful and they'll be able to give you the advice you need before you decline your offer at the university. And so as you can see, clearing is for anyone essentially that wants to go to university at a time. And let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk a bit about how you apply for clearing. I forgot to mention as well, it's very important, all the universities, if you go to their websites, you will be able to see all the courses that are actually available for clearing. So it's very important to also don't only just check the UCAS hub to search for courses, but you can also search the university websites, which would let you know in real time what courses are available at clearing. So how do you apply? So I'll start off by saying ask for advice. Obviously on results day, it's going to be very busy. A lot of emotions, different things happening. And so make sure you speak to your career advisor, find out from them, have a conversation about the courses that are available. Maybe if you didn't quite meet the results that you expected, the offers that, you didn't get no offers, whatever the circumstances may be, it's important, speak to your career advisors. I would say they'll be your first point of contact if you did not meet the requirements, and you can get the help and support. Also very important, search and compare clearing courses. Again, like I mentioned, UCAS Hub is a very useful place to go to. You got UCAS Plus, where you can get the extra help, where the courses can be tailored for your needs depending on your application. And so again, there are many tools that are available for you to search, compare the clearing courses that is available. Again, just because a degree has the same name in two different institutions or other institutions, have a look at the modules. It's very important for you to check to make sure that this is something that you really want to do. Also, calling the university, what I would say to you is that make sure that you have a list of all the universities that you are interested in applying to, so that you have the telephone number and you have all the details there, so you can just have it at hand. And also making sure that you've got your UCAS number, your clearing number available as well, and your personal statement. And so when you call the universities that you're interested in, then you can give them the different details. So essentially what would happen is, once you get your grades, your results, you have a look and see whether you have got an offer that you are happy with. You can accept it. If not, and you go through clearing, you can then call the university. What would happen is, when you call the university, they'll just have an informal chat with you, just to find out what grades you have, and also let them know what course that you want to do during, for obviously for that is in clearing, that is available for vacancy. And they'll speak to you to check to make sure that you are eligible, especially obviously your grades, most importantly. And then after that, they'll give you an offer over the phone. And so once you've got an offer, only then the university will advise you, you've got an offer, we're happy to accept you on the course. Then you can go and add a clearing choice in your application. It's very important that you do not add a clearing choice without first calling the university. It's very important to also understand that even though you may search through UCAS or the university website, ultimately to get an offer, you would need to call the university. And so do your research first, then call the university, and only add a clearing choice once you have got a place and the university confirms that. Normally they'll follow up with a 48 hours and you get an email, and then you can obviously go further to find out about accommodation and student finance, which I believe is going to be covered later on. So essentially that's how you go about applying. If we go to the next slide, please. Okay, so again, I've already mentioned making sure you do your research. So this will be the last slide I'm going to cover through. I know I've spoken quite a lot about different things, but the most important thing to remember is you need to make sure you've got a UCAS account. So register if you do not have a UCAS account, as you will need your UCAS ID. Very important. This is a number that university will be asking for, and you'll also be given a clearing number as well. Start your research now. As I've mentioned before, clearing opened on the 5th of July. So clearing is open now. So you could actually be doing your research now. Don't wait on results day to be doing your research. By then, you'll probably be a bit too late, and there's obviously a lot of emotions happening. And so the last thing you want to do is be too concerned about doing research. Start doing your research now. The universities that you're interested in applying to, start having a look to see the modules, the courses, and things like that. Very important. Again, as I mentioned, make sure you have your UCAS ID and also clearing number and the grades that you have at hand before you call the university. There's no point calling the university if you do not have this at hand, as they'll have to take another call. And so last thing you want is, be calling up universities and not having the right information available for the universities. And also very important, apply for courses that suits you, that you really want to do. Don't just apply for university simply because everybody's doing it. Okay, that's not the reason why you should be thinking about going to university. I would say to you, do your research, make sure this is the course that suits you. Very important, have a look at the modules. I keep stressing that. Have a look at the modules. Just because a degree has the same name across other universities doesn't mean that you're going to be doing the same thing. And so do your research, have a look at those courses, and make sure that that's something that you want to do. And lastly, stay calm. I appreciate our results day is going to be a lot of emotions, but the universities, we're here to help and support you. So again, there are going to be a lot of vacancies available on different courses. And so bearing in mind as well, clearing is open from now, 5th of July, all the way until the 21st of October. And so, yep, that's all I have for you. And I'll pass it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Fred. And thank you again, Lolly, as well, for getting that presentation sorted. So moving across now, we're going to be joined by the University of Kent, where we will be speaking with Jonathan. Jonathan's now going to be covering topics on what to actually do on results day and go into a little bit more detail on that. So if Jonathan, you could get up your presentation, that would be brilliant, and I'll pass over to you.
Okay, cracking. So afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for having me on. So just to check, yeah, you can see the presentation and you can see the slides moving through. Let me just quickly double check. Yeah, you can see the slides moving right.
All good, thank you.
Smashing. Okay, so yeah, as I said, my name's Jonathan. I work for the University of Kent in our kind of student recruitment team. So I'll be chatting to you a little bit about maybe some of the more specific things about what you should be doing on results day, or things to bear in mind for results day. So some of this has already been touched on by Fred and Ross, but hopefully this will, maybe just reinforce some of those points as well, and to give you some kind of practical points as to things to consider on results day. Because again, for someone like me who's been kind of in and around higher education for 10 years or so, it's all pretty obvious, but I appreciate you guys, this is probably maybe the only results day that you'll ever do. So you're not going to be as used to this kind of thing. So hopefully I can give you some advice onto what to keep an eye out for and some helpful tips to maybe make it as easy a process as it can be. So the first one, and this is something that Fred literally just mentioned, so very glad that we can agree on this, is about doing your preparation beforehand. Just leaving everything to the last minute, turning up on results day at your school or college, and then just trying to figure it all out on the fly is going to mean that you might have a more stressful time than you otherwise need to. So simple things like making a note of your UCAS ID, making a note of if you've got specific applicant IDs for different universities. So for example, at Kent, we use your UCAS ID, but we can also use a more specific ID that's just for us that we have. And if there's universities that you might want to be contacting, make a note of those phone numbers. So if you're thinking, I might just want to ask some questions to my first choice, I don't really want to go into clearing, but just in case I have any questions, look up now, what's the hotline number for my particular universities, and then it's going to save you a good bit of time, good bit of stress, kind of working out what that is on the day. Again, if you are someone who's thinking about, maybe you want to go into clearing and look for different courses, or maybe you're, just not feeling 100% confident about whether you're going to get your first choice or not, look into some courses now in advance and see what some options might be for you. Because again, if suddenly you arrive on results day and then it's, actually, I haven't got my first choice, now what am I going to do? If you've already been through that thought process and you've already thought about, okay, if I don't get my first choice, I know that I've got these other options in my back pocket, that's going to make things a lot easier. You could then just log straight onto their website, straight onto UCAS, apply for those in 5 minutes, and then it's done. So think about advance. Even if you are very, very confident, that's absolutely great. What I would say is maybe just have one extra backup option in your pocket, just in case you need it. But if you are somebody who's thinking about changing your mind, again, start doing some research now. You've got a couple of weeks ahead of you. All the information is available online on university websites. They've all published all their different clearing courses. You can even apply now if you want to, but obviously you haven't got your results, so you won't necessarily be able to get offers at this point. But doing the research into alternative courses now can save you a lot of time and energy on the day. Something else that's worth bearing in mind, it's probably going to apply for the minority of people, but just check how your exam results actually get to your choices. Now, for the large majority of people, I say 95% of people or more, your results will automatically go to your universities. So you won't have to kind of send things off or scan documents or anything like that. However, there are a small number of people, for example, if you've taken some kind of international qualification, or maybe you've done a slightly more unusual qualification, let's say, some of those results might need to be sent to a university directly. So you might need to scan your results slip, and you might need to get some kind of documentation or something like that and actually send it to a university. If that's you, hopefully that's something you might already be aware of. If you're not 100% sure, I'd say just chat to your school or your college. Generally speaking, most people are doing something like an A-level or a B-Tech or something like that, in which case it's not an issue. It just goes straight there and it's quite seamless. But if you are uncertain anyway, just double check how your results are actually going to get to your university. The main thing you're going to want to be doing on results day, fairly obvious, but collecting your results is really, really big. So just a quick reminder, if you are in Scotland, your results day for the Scottish Qualifications Authority is Tuesday the 6th of August. So coming up very, very shortly. And you will get them online, or they will also be posted to you, but you'll have your results online instantly on that day. For the large majority of people, though, that are outside of Scotland and the rest of the UK, results day is Thursday the 15th of August, and you can collect your results from 8 a.m. onwards from your school or college. Now, that will vary slightly. Maybe some schools might open at 9, some schools might open, a little bit after that. So just double check with them when you can actually go and get your results. But 8 a.m. on Thursday the 15th of August is when results are released. that's when you can start accessing it. If you can't get your results, I appreciate lots of people on holiday right now, for example. If you can't go to your school or college yourself and get them, arrange for somebody else to do that for you. Whether it's a family member or something like that, just get them to go along and get them, and then they can call you up and tell you what's in your envelope, or they can take a picture of it, something like that. But it's really important to actually collect your results on the day, or have someone collect them on the day and confirm them. Because if you are then calling up universities or calling up UCAS, they won't tell you what your results are over the phone. You have to know that yourself, and you have to be able to confirm it, because we can't run the risk of telling somebody their results and then it accidentally being wrong. We need you to know what your results are. So if you're going to be making clearing applications, or if you're going to be calling up to try and clarify something about your application with one of your choices, knowing your results is a really important part of that. So therefore, making sure that you've actually been along to your school or college, or you've got someone to go to your school or college and collect those results, is a really big important thing that you want to be doing on the day. Just want to include this slide about what statuses might be on UCAS on results day, because this is something that we get loads and loads of calls about to our hotline, because oftentimes the issue is that there's nothing wrong with someone's application, it's just that they might have misunderstood what their status actually is. So when you get to results day, you log into your UCAS hub, you will see attached to your application a few different options. So the first one is waiting for confirmation. And this basically means that UCAS are still waiting for your choice, your university, to let them know if you've met the conditions. This might be because they haven't, maybe your university hasn't received your results yet. You might be one of those people, like I said, who needs to send your results in some capacity, or you need to send some additional piece of information before they can process an unconditional offer, for example. It might just be that there's been some kind of delay. Now, hopefully that's not the case. Every single university endeavours to have all of their offers in place and ready to go by 8 a.m. on that Thursday of results day. But there may have been some kind of delay. So if it says waiting for confirmation, it basically means they're waiting for the university to confirm that you've got your place. Now, for the large majority of people, hopefully it will say something like, congratulations, you've been placed at your firm choice, University X, to study course Y, the firm choice that you initially had. In which case, that's great. Congratulations, you're all sorted. You've been firmly accepted at your university choice. Just make sure that you check the details on the application, and just make sure that it is actually the course that you applied for originally. I'm going to talk about alternative course offers in just a second. But even if don't just see congratulations and think, oh, great, everything must be fine. Just quickly make sure you read it properly, check that it is the right university, that it is the right course. And once that's all sorted, you don't need to do anything further. They'll just start sending you details about your course, about enrollment, about all that kind of different stuff. Alternatively, it might say, congratulations, you've been placed at your insurance choice, University Y, to study course X, let's say. So this means that basically you have got a place on your insurance choice, but unfortunately you didn't meet the conditions for your firm choice. So if you haven't met the conditions of your firm choice, if your firm choice can't accept you, you will automatically kind of revert to your insurance choice. And if this is somewhere that you'd like to go, if this is still a good choice for you, fantastic. You don't need to do anything. It's all sorted. It'll just kind of process through naturally. However, if you don't want to go to your insurance choice, maybe you'd like to try your luck again with your firm choice and apply for a different course there, or maybe you've just changed your mind entirely and you want to go somewhere else, you can contact the university, either your insurance choice or your firm choice, or any other university for that matter, and talk about what your options might be. And you might be able to kind of switch things around a little bit. If you've decided that you definitely don't want that insurance choice, you can decline your place. But as Fred said, before you do any kind of declining, just make sure that you are absolutely sure you don't want that offer and you don't want that place at that university. Because once you decline, it ceases to exist, and you're kind of back to square one in clearing, and you've got to start afresh. And then the fourth option might be you've not been placed at your firm or your insurance choice. So this means that unfortunately you didn't meet the conditions for either of the offers that you received for firm or for your insurance choice. You're now in clearing. So it will say you're in clearing, and it will give you a clearing number, and you're in the position where you can now start applying for available courses around the country. If you're still waiting for exam results, if you haven't confirmed your results, you're not going to be able to use clearing until you receive them. It is worth saying. But if you've not been placed at your firm or insurance choice, what I would also say is, don't lose heart completely. There are, as we've been hearing, tons and tons of really, really good options available through clearing. Oftentimes, the original university that you wanted to go to, they might not have been able to accept you on your firm choice, but there will oftentimes be lots and lots of other courses that they can offer you instead. So on that note, I just want to say a little bit about alternative course offers, because again, this is something that can oftentimes kind of trip people up on results day. Because what can sometimes happen is if you haven't met the conditions for your original offer at your firm choice, remember, the university still wants you to go there. They still want you to come and be a student. So what they might do is, rather than just kind of declining you entirely, they will make you an alternative course offer for a different program at their university. So it might be a similar course, within the same academic school. If you've applied for criminology, but you haven't got the grades for that, but the offer for sociology is a little bit lower, they might make you an offer for sociology instead. It might alternatively be the same course. Let's say you applied for law and you haven't got the grades for law. They might offer you law, but with a foundation year as well, where the grade's going to be a little bit lower and you do an additional year of study at the start of the course. So again, this is what's really important when you see that you've got offers from universities, that you check what course it is that they're actually offering you. Don't just assume it's the exact same one that I applied for in the first place, but just double check. It's up to you to decide whether you want to take a new course offer or not. You're not just going to be automatically shunted onto a foundation year program and they're just going to process everything for that, but rather, if your course offer has been changed, if they've made an alternative course offer to you, you get the opportunity to say yes or no to that offer. If you say yes, that's great. You can just firmly accept it. It will go through and it will process as standard. If not, that's absolutely fine. You can decline that offer and you can go into clearing and try your luck elsewhere. Again, if you are unsure, I would always say talk to the university before you decline. Maybe they've made you one alternative course offer. There might be 3 or 4 other courses they could offer you as well instead that you might prefer. So don't just think, oh, they've made me this one alternative course and I don't want to do that, so I guess I'd better scrap the whole lot. Rather, contact that university, talk to them, and then find out what else they might be able to do for you. But you don't have to accept an offer that you don't like. And don't accept any offers for alternative courses without actually investigating it and making sure that you're happy with it. I think some students can sometimes feel a little bit kind of in the lurch. They can feel a little bit desperate. So they're just going to jump and snatch at the first course offer they can get. But rather take a bit of time, reflect, and think about, is this actually a course I want to do? And contacting choices is going to be your other big thing to do on results day. If you have any questions whatsoever regarding your university application, regarding your accommodation, regarding student life in general, whatever it might be, contact the university and ask them. At Kent, we run a big clearing hotline, so we have hundreds of operators on the phones. Many other universities have similar things, as we've heard. So if you're uncertain about anything, call up. Don't just think, oh, I've read this thing on my UCAS hub and it looks like I've not got a place, so I guess I better go into clearing and decline these offers. No, actually, you may have just misunderstood. And if you call the university up, they can take 30 seconds to clarify the situation for you, and you can save yourself a lot of stress and a lot of hassle on that day. It can get confusing. It's very, very easy to misunderstand things, get things confused. And that's why universities are there to try and answer all your questions and help you with that. Even if you've got your offer and you're all fine, if you just got questions about the course, just call up and ask. That is absolutely fine as well. With this in mind, make a note of the contact information for different universities in advance, because that can save you time. If you don't want to talk over the phone, you don't have to. There's online things you can use. You can email. There's kind of chat systems on university websites. So if you're not comfortable on the phone, that is absolutely fine. One thing to note, I would say, is remember, universities can only discuss your application with yourself or a designated proxy. So somebody listed on your UCAS form or you. So just be in position to make those calls yourself if you need to. And the final point, I'm just going to wrap things up very briefly because I'm conscious of the time. Get support when you're on results day. Don't just try and figure it all out yourself and feel like you have to fight this battle yourself. Rather, talk to people around you, talk to family, talk to friends, talk to people at your school or college. Talk these situations through. It can feel very time pressured, it can feel quite stressful, but just take a breath, chat to people, figure out your options, talk to universities and talk to UCAS as well themselves if you've got any issues and you want any more clarity about anything. But just don't feel like you have to be rushed into something. This is a big decision. You want to make sure that you're happy with it at the end of the day. So just make sure that you get the support that you need and you don't try and sort of suffer in silence, as it were. So quick reminders there on screen. If you want any more information about our side of things at Kent, QR code is available there and has been throughout the different slides. But yeah, do your research, go and get your results on results day, check on your UCAS hub, check your status there, get any support that you need and contact universities if you have any applications. Once all that's done, start making applications if you want to or if you feel like you need to as well. So that was everything from me. Thank you very much. I'll hand back over to Oliver and we'll hopefully go to Q&A afterwards as well. Speak to you soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that informative presentation there, Jonathan. So moving across now to our final presentation of the session before we do move on to the question and answers. We're lucky enough to be joined by Solent University, where we'll be speaking with Celine. And Celine's going to be giving us a bit more information on how to arrange finances and accommodation if you receive an offer through clearing. So Celine, if you'd like to share your screen with us, and it's over to you. Cheers.
Okay, so I'm Celine. I work at Solent University, which is in Southampton. And yeah, I'm going to go through just what to do other than once you've got your place, the other bits you need to do. So thinking about finances and accommodation as well. So to start with accommodation. So most universities will guarantee first-year students accommodation. And that includes students in clearing. You're still going to be a first-year student. If there's still places on the course, there's probably still places in the halls. So they should guarantee, most universities will guarantee somewhere for you to live. Every university has a slightly different process on how to apply for the accommodation. So if you're not sure, when you phone up and you speak to them about whether they can give you a place in clearing, ask about the accommodation application as well. They'll be able to tell you over the phone. And just as an idea, I'm going to tell you how it works where I work, because that's what I know. So this is the information that our students get sent. So once they've secured their place for, through clearing, the team will invite them to apply for halls of residence. And you will only get invited to apply for accommodation once you've actually accepted your offer. And that is likely to be the same for any university. So you have to accept your offer first through UCAS, so it's all done officially. And then the way that we do it is we send an email to the student to say how to apply, and it's all done online. And any correspondence is done by email as well. So you've got a paper trail for everything, you know everything's done. Also, I think it was Ross earlier mentioned that they have a clearing open day. We do too. Most universities have a clearing open day. So our one is the Saturday after results day. And that could be a good opportunity for you to go and visit the university you're looking at and actually have a look at the residences before you make a decision as well. And also most universities, as well as the other teams that you'll be in touch with, have an accommodation team too. So our one we do, and we have an email, and we have a phone number, and they're really helpful. So if you do have any concerns, you can always phone them up or email them as well. So when it comes to accommodation, my top tips are, first of all, don't rush into a decision. Much like you've heard all, in the last hour, don't rush into any decisions. Really take your time checking out what accommodation options are available. You need to think about what's going to suit you. Do you want it to be really close to the uni? Do you want to have an ensuite? Do you want there to be, do you want to share a living space in the kitchen, or do you want it to be catered? So those are things that you need to consider. And also think about where you're willing to compromise as well. So in an ideal world, obviously we'd all be in, a penthouse apartment, but that's not really an option when it comes to halls of residence. So think about, if you don't get your first choice, what would you be willing to lose? So do you mind just not being, maybe being a little bit further away from the uni? Is an ensuite absolutely essential for you? So do think about those things. And when you're thinking about the compromise, that leads me into my next point, that you also need to think about what your budget's going to be as well. So it may be that actually you can't afford to have the hall that you want to go to. So do think about that as well. And as I've already said, try and visit a clearing open day so you can actually look at the uni and the accommodation in real life as well. You'll be sent all the information and pictures and things like that, but it's nice if you can actually go and look at it in person. And as I've already said as well, if you've got any concerns, contact the accommodation team or the admissions teams. They're great. They're there to help you. They want to get you set up as best as possible during a really stressful time. So do contact them if you have any concerns. Okay. So then student finance. So when you go to university, most students will apply for student finance, and this is where you get money that supports your studies and the times you spend at university. There is an application. Many of you may have already done it. If you haven't, it can take up to 8 weeks for them to process it. It doesn't take very long to actually fill out the form, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. But yeah, it can take quite a while. They say 8 weeks. It's usually done a lot quicker than that, but they don't guarantee anything. And if you do apply late, they do try their best to get everything done on time, especially the fees for your course, but there's no guarantee. So you can apply for this right now if you haven't, even if you're not even sure if you're going to go to uni yet. You might be on this call because you haven't applied and actually you've decided you might apply through clearing. You can apply for your student finance now. So just get it done. If for any reason you decide you're not going to go to university, it's fine. You can just let them know and nothing will happen. Your application just won't be processed. So definitely get the application done as soon as possible. So just a little bit about finance, because it's something that we get lots of questions about. There's also lots of worries about it. So it's basically a loan that's supplied by the government for students going to higher education in the UK. There's two loans that you'll get. There's the tuition loan, and that covers your tuition fees, so literally the course fees. And that money, just when you go and register on your first day at uni, that money gets paid straight to the university from student finance. You don't have to worry about doing the transfer or anything like that. It's just done for you. And then you also get a maintenance loan. So this is money for you to spend on whatever you want. So it might contribute towards your course of residence. It might be for travel. You might just blow it all on going out on the first term and then realize that's not a very good idea. Try not to do that. And that money just gets paid straight into your bank account, and you can spend it however you want to. So the tuition fee is a fixed amount. It will just cover however much your course costs, go straight to the uni, like I said. And then the maintenance loan varies. So depending on what your household income is at the moment, the lower your household income, the more you'll get. If you're going to uni in London, you'll get a little bit more as well. So it's variable. If you go onto the website, there is a calculator as well, so you can put in and it will tell you roughly how much you'd be going to get. So that does vary. What else do you need to know about student loans? Now, I could talk about student finance for 45 minutes, for an hour. There's loads of information, and I'm sure there'll be questions about this after this, and that's fine. The most important thing to remember is it's not a big scary loan. So it used to be called the Student Loan Company. I think they probably changed the name to Student Finance because it sounds a little bit less scary. It's not like a classic loan, so no one's going to come around and take your telly away because you're not paying it back. It's not going to affect your credit rating when you come to buy a house or anything like that. And when you finish university, you won't start paying it back until you finish university and when you're earning over a certain amount of money. And if you stop earning, you stop paying, it just comes out of your paycheck along with your national insurance and tax. So it's not as scary as it sounds. And like I say, if you stop earning, you just stop paying. And if you haven't paid it back after 40 years, it just gets written off. And it's quite a small amount as well. So it's not a huge chunk that goes out of your pay every month and you think, oh, how annoying. You don't really notice it. There's a lot of information on the Student Finance website if you need some reassurance as well. And again, if you phone them, they're amazing as well if you've got any questions. And most importantly, the website where you need to actually apply is on the screen here. So take a shot of it or write it down. And my top tip, and I've only got one top tip for this one, is just get the application done if you haven't already. Because like I say, if you change your mind, you decide you're not going to go to uni, nothing's going to happen. It doesn't matter. You can just phone them up and let them know, and your application will be cancelled. And I think that's it. I tried to whiz through because I think we're a little bit behind. So try to go through as quickly as possible, and I will hand back to Oliver. And we can do questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Celine. And I know it's a sort of topic as well where, like you said, you can speak through it for hours and hours. But I think you've got through all of the top tips there, so very appreciative of that. As you mentioned, we've probably got around 10 minutes left for this session. However, we do have a few follow-up questions that we are going to ask all of our panelists today, just to get them bits of extra information. And maybe these are the questions where we feel are asked most of the time from all of our students. So on top of this, guys, just to make you aware, I know a few people have been asking questions, but if you do feel like there are any extra bits of information that you do want, please ask in the Q&A function, and all of our panelists will do our best to answer these questions for you. So moving back to the top again, where we'll be joined by Fred at the University of Westminster. The first question I've got for you, Fred, I'm aware, again, all of these questions, we could go on for ages and ages, but if we could try and keep it to sort of around 3 to 4 minute answer, that would be brilliant. But with this first follow-up question for you is, can someone else make a clearing call on your behalf?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, from my experience, we always get students who maybe a family member will call up on their behalf because they're nervous, they're not too sure what to say and things like that. And so the answer to your question is no, if you're not there. And so, for example, you can't obviously get somebody else to call the university for you and you're not present there. And so you will need to give consent to the university that you call. So, for example, maybe you've got, your mum or your father or somebody else there to help and support you. The university needs to speak to you and get your consent. And then they will then allow whoever the person that wants to come on the phone on your behalf. And so it's just important to make sure that you get all the necessary information that you need. And also, if you want to as well, to make it easier for you, is try to have a script if possible, or what you're going to say, or know exactly what you're going to say. So as opposed to going on the phone and then, you know, you just panic and then you freeze. Or another tip I'll say is potentially speak to your support network. So speak to your parents about it, you know, and find out all the information. So I think a lot of the times when you haven't done the research yourself, you might think, you know what, let me get somebody else to call up the university for me. But I think it's important that you take ownership. Obviously, it's important you get the help and support that is needed from your school, your teachers and career advisors and so forth, and obviously from home as well. But it's very important that you take ownership and you know exactly what's going on, the universities that is of interest to you, the courses, and that way it helps to remove the nerves away, and so you have more confidence to actually call up the university yourself. And so, yeah, it's fine to have somebody there with you that you want them to speak on your behalf, but you have to be present and give consent over the phone to the university so they can speak to that person. So that's what I would say about that.
Thank you very much for that answer, Fred. So moving across now to City, where we'll be speaking with Ross. So Ross, the follow-up question that I have for you is, how many places do you have available through clearing and on which courses?
What a good question. The ultimate question. How many places do you have? Well, in terms of my answer, I'm going to be a bit of a politician sort of answer and say, in terms of a number, it will depend every year it changes, and every uni will have different numbers that they're working towards, and it's a constantly moving picture. So it's a difficult one to put a number on. But in terms of context with that, which comes into the second part of the question on courses, and actually I was just answering a question in the Q&A about medicine in clearing. There are some courses that you can probably expect not to be in clearing, medicine being one of them. That's not to say it won't necessarily be there everywhere, but it is unlikely to be in clearing. Most medical schools do not go into clearing. Similarly, from a City perspective, or City St George's perspective, optometry is less likely to go into clearing than many other courses because there are not many optometry, generally health-related programs, but that's not to say there won't be health programs. Many programs like nursing do go into clearing at multiple universities, but most programs at some form will be in clearing. There are some universities that don't do clearing, but most universities participate in the process. But in terms of the overall numbers, it really does depend. And also the reason why it depends, like some students might ask, well, why haven't you got a certain number to give? Because of course, at the moment I don't know if students know this, but we as practitioners know we're under an embargo period at the moment. So universities will actually start receiving results. So in Scotland, some universities have already got the students' results, and the English and Wales results come out next week. So we actually get them slightly ahead of schools and also you as students, because obviously you have a set time on results day to get them. So we then go through the process of confirmation. So we know, and then once we then know how many students who applied for us in the main cycle have got the results that we are expecting, that's when we can start firming up how many places are in clearing. But at this stage, with sort of over still 2 weeks to go before main results day, it's very difficult to answer exactly how many places would be in clearing. But most courses in some form will be in clearing. But happy to take any spin-off questions from that.
Thank you very much for that answer, Ross. So moving across now to Jonathan at the University of Kent. And the question that I have for you, Jonathan, is, can you apply to a different subject to the one you initially applied for?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, for many people, clearing is their opportunity to do just that. So they might have thinking, oh, back in January, I applied for economics, but since then, in the last 6 months, I've fallen in love with English literature. Now I'd actually like to go and do English lit at university. Yeah, you can absolutely do that. So you can apply for any course you like in clearing. Obviously, just your ability to get onto any course that you like might depend slightly more on the entry requirements. So the thing I would say is, if you are thinking about applying for different courses, just check the entry requirements for those courses, because it might be that they have certain subject-specific entry requirements. Let's say if you've done all sciences, let's say if you've done all humanities at A level, and you're suddenly thinking, oh, actually, now I'd like to go into hard sciences like physics or something. You might have needed to have done, say, A-level physics or A-level science at some capacity to get onto those courses. Now, saying that, there are oftentimes things like foundation years that you can do instead, which would give you an alternative route without those subject-specific entry requirements. Like our forensic science degree is an example of that. But yes, you can apply for different courses. Just bear in mind that you might need to have specific subjects or certain entry requirements to get onto those courses. But yeah, you don't have to stay in the same lane that you've always been in with your main application, no.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Jonathan. So moving on finally again to Celine with your next question from Solent University. And I think this is a question that we do get asked quite a lot, and it's quite an important one. And is when is the deadline for clearing? And does it actually have to be done on results day?
Okay, so the deadline for clearing is the 21st of October at 6 p.m. You can apply all the way up till then, but we obviously do suggest that you do it as soon as possible, just because if you leave it, there's going to be less spaces available. They're going to get filled up by other students. So if you can do it on results day, great. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. You've got all the way up until the 21st of October. But like I say, the sooner the better, because then there'll be many more options available to you.
Thank you very much for that, Celine. And thank you very much to everyone that's joined us today. So thank you to Fred at the University of Westminster, Ross at City, Jonathan at the University of Kent, and again to yourself, Celine, at Solent University. I think this session's been really insightful. We've got information across the board. So what clearing actually is, more into what to actually do on the day, bits of information about finance and accommodation if you are actually going through clearing, and as well as information on that clearing interview. I think the big thing to take from today is we've got lots of information, but there is so much online going through the admissions team. Everybody is here to help. It comes across as a really, really stressful day. But the big thing that I've taken from this session is please don't panic and don't rush. This is something where it could be you for the next 3-4 years. So it is a big decision, and please don't panic. Lots of people are going through it. Lots of people have been through it before, including myself. So please do take your time and make sure that you are making the right options. We have got a few more minutes of this session available. I can see that there are a few extra questions in that Q&A function. So I will leave the session open, and we will also have our panelists here on hand to answer. So if you do have anything extra, you've got a few minutes now to just fire away, and we will all be here on hand to help you. But in the meantime, I just want to say a massive thank you from myself, Oliver, here at UK University Search. Massive thank you to all of our panelists, and for all of the people, all of our participants joining us today. This session, as I did mention at the beginning, has been recorded and will be available on our website, which is studentstream.co.uk, and that will be available at some point next week. But for all of you that have actually registered for this event, we will also be sending you an email with that link and some extra information. So I want to say thank you. I want you all to enjoy the rest of your Fridays, wherever you are in the country or possibly the world. The weather's not looking brilliant here, but I hope the sun is out wherever you are. I'm going to turn off my screen now and stop the recording, but we will just keep the Q&A open. Is there anything else from our panelists today? No? Brilliant. Well, I want to say a massive thank you and enjoy the rest of your day and weekend. Cheers.